coming up on a newscast. The South Korean won dropped to its lowest level against the dollar in more than a decade. This comes as renewed concerns surface over the U.S. central bank's aggressive monetary tightening. Seoul and Washington begin the second part of the summertime combined drills. This time, they will be focused on counterattack operations against North Korea. For the fourth straight year, BTS take home the top honor in the group category at the MTV Awards. Blackpink became the historic first ever winner of the Best Metaverse Performance Award. 17 got the Push Performance of the Year. Hello, hope your week's off to a smooth start. I'm Daniel Che. Let's begin with our top story. NASA's Artemis I launch has been called off due to technical issues with one of the rocket's 4 engines. The rocket and Orion spacecraft had been prepared for liftoff at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The next launch opportunity is on September 2nd, depending on how the team evaluates the delay. The rocket was a rehearsal to put a crew capsule into orbit around the moon, a milestone in America's quest to put astronauts back on the lunar surface for the first time since the Apollo program ended 50 years ago. With interest rates rising in the States, the South Korean currency has fallen to a 13-year low against the greenback. In response to won's ongoing depreciation, the BOK is ready to intervene if necessary. Here's Shin Ha-young with a breakdown of the figures.
South Korean currency continues to lose ground against the U.S. dollar as Federal Reserve officials signal they are going to keep raising interest rates. The exchange rate today surpassed 1,351 to the dollar for the first time in almost 13 and a half years. In the local market, the won closed at 1350.4, up about 19 won from the day before. There's been flight to the dollar from most major currencies, including the euro, the pound, and the Japanese yen. For South Korea, the Fed's hawkish remarks weren't the only cause of the won's recent depreciation. An expert says another factor, the country's trade deficit.
South Korea's ongoing trade deficit is another reason that causes capital outflows and is causing the exchange rate to rise.
Today, Bank of Korea Governor Lee Jae-myung said that the BOK is ready to take steps, including intervention, to stabilize the currency if needed. However, the expert says that while intervention by the BOK might help address this volatility in the currency, the exchange rate will keep rising unless issues like the trade deficits are addressed. He added that it's difficult for Korea to raise its key rate as much as the Fed has been doing since there is a high risk of economic recession and a deepening of household debt. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News.
If inflation remains above 5%, South Korea will have to continue the so-called normalization of interest rates. That's coming from the nation's central banker during Sunday's interview with Bloomberg when asked whether he would consider another half percentage point rate hike. Lee Jae-myung highlighted the need to join the Fed in tightening focus on inflation if prices remain out of control. Back on Friday, Fed Chair Jerome Powell mentioned the U.S. will keep raising rates to fight inflation despite the short-term pain. Inflation in South Korea is expected to run at around 5% by the end of this year. The BOK raised rates by 50 basis points earlier this summer and then another 25 points last week. In a separate interview with Reuters, Governor Rhee said Seoul is ready to take necessary steps to stabilize the won against the greenback should speculative forces cause the currency to dip further. Eco-friendly cars are rapidly becoming a bigger part of South Korea's overall auto exports. Through July, outbound shipments of such models rose to a record high by volume, an increase of more than 41% on year. Shin Se-byuk helps us look beyond the digits.
The value of South Korea-made eco-friendly car shipments hit an all-time high for the first 7 months of this year at $8.8 billion. According to data from the Korea Automobile Manufacturers Association on Monday, 5 South Korea-based car makers, Hyundai, Kia, GM Korea, Renault Korea, and SsangYong exported 306,000 units of green cars from January to July, up over 41% on year. Such figures were largely driven by outstanding performances in July, when almost 1/5 of the total exports for the period were reported. Over 54,000 eco-friendly cars were sold in that month alone, This is the first time that the figure surpassed 50,000. The KAMA attributed July's sharp jump to increased production as well as a resumption of car shipments following protests by the Korean Confederation of Trade Unions last month. Zooming into the numbers reported during the January to July period, by company, Hyundai led the chart, accounting for 45% of the total with almost 140,000 cars. Kia followed with a little over 130,000 units, or roughly around 43%, and Renault Korea took 12%. In terms of vehicle type, over 160,000 were hybrids, holding the biggest piece of the pie. EVs came in second with nearly 117,000 units, but saw the biggest on-year increase in export volume of any vehicle type, with 56.5%. As of August, exports of eco-friendly cars take up almost 30% of South Korea's car exports. The monthly value has been around $1 billion for 11 months in a row since September last year, when it first exceeded the 1 billion mark. 신세벽, Arirang News.
Over in Mongolia, Seoul's sub-diplomat agreed with his counterpart to set up a new center in that country to promote bilateral cooperation on rare earth minerals and supply chains. Park Jin emphasized that resource-rich Mongolia is a key partner for South Korea, especially in stabilizing the country's supply chains. His threat sides share the value of democracy and human rights. The FM also called for a closer cooperation with Mongolia to promote regional peace and prosperity. Later in the afternoon, the minister paid a courtesy call on the Mongolian president ahead of his return to Seoul on Tuesday. This marks the first trip to Mongolia by a South Korean foreign minister since the year 2014. The People Power Party is trying to restore leadership stability amid a crisis that saw a chairman removed and a court suspending an interim leader. The ruling bloc seeks reappointment to end the crisis before the Chuseok holiday, but there are growing voices of concern coming from within. Lee Jae-myung has the latest.
Following a court suspension of its interim leader, the ruling People Power Party is gearing up to relaunch its emergency leadership. Until then, the party will be led by its full leader Kweong Seong-dong. Kweong will serve as what the party calls acting interim leader despite controversy surrounding his role.
There are certain tasks that I need to carry out in order to proceed with the launching of a new leadership. The priority is resolving the current crisis.
Along with Kweong, all of the emergency committee members, except for its head Ju-young, will remain in their positions in order to proceed with the party's plan. During the process, the party will revise its charter in a way that will allow for the launch of an emergency system and prevent the latest legal attack filed by ex-chairman Lee Jae-myung. But Lee, who is seeking to block any form of emergency leadership that will keep him from returning to his post, immediately filed for another injunction. His legal team is insisting on the invalidity of the rest of the emergency leadership members, citing the supposed invalidity of the whole leadership system. In fact, the head of the party's national committee, Seo Byung-soo, largely agrees with that idea. And he has rejected to convening any national committee meeting, which would have the ultimate right to approve an interim leader.
I believe the court's latest decision essentially proves the invalidity of the procedures taken to launch the emergency leadership. We should not go down the wrong path again.
Seo instead called on full leader Kweong to resign to pave the way for a new full leader. And the new full leader will serve as an acting chair on behalf of ex-chairman Lee Jae-myung. Similar calls are rising within the party, but full leader Kweong Seong-dong has so far made clear that he will not resign. Eyes are on whether the party reaches a compromise in the coming days and ends the crisis by its Chuseok holiday deadline. Lee Jae-myung, Arirang News.
Lee Jae-myung has become the chairman of the Democratic Party with a landslide victory. On his first day in office, the former presidential candidate expressed determination to work with the government and the ruling bloc to improve people's lives. Kim Bo-kyung shares with us his remarks.
Taking reformative and practical action to improve people's livelihoods. That's what newly elected chairperson of the Democratic Party of Korea, Lee Jae-myung, stressed on his first day in office. Lee visited the Seoul National Cemetery on Monday and held a meeting with Supreme Council members. There, he emphasized his will to put people's livelihoods as the utmost priority.
I believe the Democratic Party needs to take a practical, reformative path for people's livelihoods. Facing a difficult economic reality ranging from inflation, the exchange rate, and interest rate, I will put all my efforts into improving people's livelihoods and preventing regression.
And for this, Lee asked President Yoon Suk-yeol to meet for talks on cooperation, saying bipartisan efforts are needed to overcome the economic crisis. Lee also said he would keep the administration in check.
I hope the Yoon administration and the president are a success because that ultimately guarantees better lives for the people. We will cooperate if needed, but we will fight fiercely against regression and autocracy that threaten democracy and people's livelihoods.
Meanwhile, in the afternoon, Lee paid a visit to former President Moon Jae-in at his private residence in Yangsan of Gyeongsangnam-do province, a move seen to reinforce unity within the party. Lee was elected as the DP's chairperson on Sunday, a position that had been vacant since the party leadership resigned in March after losing the presidential election. Lee won with a landslide victory, securing 77.77% of the total votes, a record for the post of party leader. Pledging to refrain from factional politics, the new chairman vowed on his very first day in office to build a pragmatic Democratic Party of Korea and to put people's livelihoods at the very center of the party's goals. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
A personal reshuffle is underway at the top office, something that could help boost President Yoon Suk-yeol's approval rating. Two secretaries in charge of political affairs have resigned. They are largely perceived to be fired for poor performance. As part of a broad overhaul, separate inspections are reportedly underway into the competence of a secretary under the Office of Civil and Social Agenda. The South Korean leader stressed the presidential office must be the organization most dedicated to and competent in serving the people. A week ago, Yoon completed a partial shakeup, replacing his senior secretary for public relations and installing a chief policy coordinator. Seoul and Washington begin the second part of their summertime combined military exercise. Unlike part one, this time the focus will be on counterattack operations against North Korea. Pyongyang zooms in on the drills, which includes field maneuvers for the first time in years.
For 4 days from Monday, part two of the large-scale combined military training operation between Seoul and Washington got underway and will last until September 1st. The Ulchi Freedom Shield exercise as a whole kicked off last Monday. With the first part of the drill completed, which focused on defending Seoul's capital area from North Korean attacks, the second part focuses on training for counterattacks to secure the safety of the capital region. For such training, the Allies set different target locations in the north, but haven't disclosed where. During the second part of the exercise, South Korea and U.S. combined forces reportedly plan to conduct field training that involves shooting from attack helicopters, as well as maritime patrol operations. At a parliamentary session on Monday, Seoul's Defense Minister Lee Jong-suk said that Tunnel 3 at North Korea's Punggye-ri nuclear test site is capable of carrying out a nuclear test, but added they're not showing any unusual signs. He also added that North Korea also continues to prepare for missile launches, including its new intercontinental ballistic missiles and short-range ballistic missiles. Lee also noted that the North recently launched cruise missiles, its first missile launch in around 2 months, and stressed that the military is closely monitoring the situation in Pyongyang through cooperation with the U.S., especially during the combined training period. Peunji, Arirang News.
Elsewhere around the world, the G7's Non-Proliferation Directors Group reiterated its concerns about the safety of Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant and demanded unimpeded access for the IAEA. A team of inspectors from the agency are on their way to the facility to assess damage following artillery strikes near the plant. Russia and Ukraine had blamed each other for the shelling in a Russia-controlled city, fueling concerns of a nuclear disaster. Unusually heavy monsoon rains have caused devastating floods in Pakistan, affecting more than 30 million people and killing more than 1,000, including hundreds of children. The country has asked the international community for financial support to help with the relief efforts. Kim Ji-yeon reports.
Among the 1,000 people killed by Pakistan monsoon rains and floods, some 300 of them are children. The country's National Disaster Management Authority says Sunday a total of 1,061 people have died, with more than 1,500 injured due to demolished buildings.
Some 130 roads and 495,000 homes have been damaged. UN Agency Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs said some 3 million people have been affected, of whom 184,000 have been displaced to relief camps across Pakistan.
A lot of floodwater entered our village, our homes are submerged. Some of our relatives have died, and cattle too.
Pakistan's Minister for Climate Change, Sherry Reappointment, called the floods that have continued since June as unprecedented. She called it the worst humanitarian disaster of this decade and warned 1/3 or a quarter of the country could be submerged. She urged the international community to provide aid. As the country's Ministry of Interior said Friday, Pakistan had authorized the deployment of the army to assist with relief and rescue operations. The United Nations said it plans to raise $160 million in relief funds, while the UK said it's planning to send emergency funds of nearly $1.8 million. Kim Jian, Arirang News.
Asia is emerging as a hub for global innovation, with startups taking the lead. Last year, South Korea was among the top countries with the highest number of unicorns. The local private sector is making game-changing innovations to further improve the related ecosystem. Choi Min-jung explains further.
Asia has become one of the most promising regions in the world for innovation. The continent was the #1 region for global venture deals in 2021, thanks to its dynamic startup companies. And South Korea last year was among the top 10 countries worldwide with the highest number of unicorns, startups that have a valuation of at least $1 billion. To further empower startups in South Korea, Microsoft has unveiled a new platform designed to help startups grow from their initial stages all the way into unicorns.
Through Microsoft Launcher, we will empower promising local startups to create a sustainable ecosystem while overcoming technical or financial barriers. We also aim to increase South Korea's role and competitiveness in the global market.
Microsoft Launcher offers more than $370,000 of benefits to startups, including free access to Microsoft's technology, tools, and resources that startups need to build and run their business. Beyond access to technology, the platform will allow entrepreneurs to innovate and grow by matching them up with mentors in the relevant industry. Small startups with less than 10 employees are given the chance to work in shared office spaces in either Seoul or Busan, with an eased burden on rent for the first 6 months. So why South Korea of all countries? The head of Microsoft Asia says South Korea possesses a huge market opportunity considering its fast-growing nature.
If you look at South Korea's history, it used to be a huge manufacturing base. Now there's innovation, handsets, television, cars, EV. We want to help South Korean startups, which there's indisputable innovation, accelerate their progresses and become businesses at scale across the world.
He added that such assistance provided by Microsoft could help accelerate progress and lead South Korean startups to become the world's driver of change in the future. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
South Korea is starting a test run of a new system where restaurants pick up reusable containers the food was delivered in. The project is designed to check whether using these kinds of containers can help cut down excessive waste. The Seoul government designated some 200 restaurants in the Gangnam-gu district where the service is available. They can be found on the delivery app 배달의 민족. For customers to return the containers, the boxes must be put back in the bag provided, placed outside the front door, and scan a QR code to send the request. The capital is looking to expand the service over time. The initial trial from last October to this January was effective in reducing waste. Korean artists won big over the weekend at the MTV Video Music Awards. BTS continued their winning streak, with MTV viewers naming them Group of the Year. Awards also for Blackpink and 17, with Best K-pop going to Blackpink member Lisa. Kim Jung-sil has the details.
A fantastic night for K-pop fans across the world as MTV viewers voted online for their favorite songs, artists, videos, and more. This year's Group of the Year award went yet again to BTS, marking the 4th year in a row they've won the top honor in the group category. They beat out nominees who included K-pop's biggest girl group Blackpink, the rock stars Måneskin, and the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Fans of Blackpink, though, were thrilled to see the group win in a brand new category, Best Metaverse Performance, for the virtual concert they gave in the mobile game PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. Blackpink also gave a live performance on stage of their newest single, Pink Venom. Released just 10 days ago, the song is currently #1 on YouTube's Global Top Songs chart. And the good news for Blackpink doesn't stop there. Member Lisa picked up the Best K-pop award for her debut solo single, La Lisa. On stage, she thanked and sent love to the Blackpink fan group Blink and her fellow band members. She faced tough competition from other K-pop artists like BTS, Twice, and 17. Speaking of 17, the boy band surprised their fans by winning the award for the Push Performance of the Year for their song Rock With You. Push Performance of the Year is awarded to the artist who gave the best performance in last year's MTV Push campaign. This was the first MTV award for the 13-member boy group who made their global fans proud. Now, a big question was whether BTS would show up to the ceremony to accept their award, but they did not, having announced back in June that they are taking a break from group activities to focus on solo projects. Artists who won in other categories include Red Hot Chili Peppers for Best Rock, Nicki Minaj for Best Hip Hop, and Taylor Swift's All Too Well for Video of the Year. Kim Jung-sil, Arirang News.
September 4th is International Taekwondo Day, held to mark the date the Korean traditional martial art became an official Olympic sport. On Friday, Seoul is holding a special performance at the newly renovated Gwanghwamun Square. It'll feature taekwondo demonstrations by Gukgiwon, or the World Taekwondo Headquarters, and performance that blends K-pop. Seats are free, but one must book through the capital's public reservation website. The city government is also planning more performances every Friday to Sunday from September 16th to October 30th.
As we get ready to wrap up the month of August, we're getting one step closer to autumn. The capital region saw a drastic drop in the readings today, but temperatures will drop even further tomorrow to 21 degrees Celsius. This is because another round of showers will bring a surge of cool air into South Korea. Other regions will also see conditions much cooler than the seasonal norms. Rain clouds will be heavily clustered around central regions. For mountainous regions of Gangwon-do province, up to 100 millimeters are in the forecast. The rest of central regions and parts of Gyeongsang-buk-do province will see about 30 to 80 millimeters. Southern parts of the country will see light rain, but thunder and lightning will follow due to unstable air. Most regions will be breezy for the morning hours. Lows in Seoul will be starting off at 19 degrees. Daily highs in Seoul and Chuncheon will reach 21, Gwangju 28, Busan will make it to 27 degrees. Showers will mostly ease off on Wednesday morning. After the rain, a high-pressure system will bring plenty of sunshine with warmer temperatures. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
That's all from us. As always, thank you for watching.